So, Maharaj, thank you for the class. I'd like to ask you about the translations, like that, especially of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I've sometimes when I hear the translation and we hear the word for word, sometimes you get the feeling that maybe in the English translation there's a lot more explanation as well. And the words.
Yeah.
And also some Bengali speakers told me they think obviously they understand the original. They sometimes think the translation is a bit funny. So when
yeah, this is Prabhupada's way of translation, and not only Prabhupada, but the previous acharyas also. This is rather a standard method of translation or of explication.
What is explication?
Explaining, really, putting it forward with explanation. There's a standard way of presenting the verse in which you put not only literal translation word by word, but you unpack the words, as it were, to give the reader an understanding of what's being said. So Srila Prabhupada does that in Bhagavad Gita. He does it in Srimad Bhagavatam. He does it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He does it everywhere. He includes not just if you want, you can go to the scholars and you'll get a word-by-word literal translation from guys who really don't believe in the thought that what's being said, don't follow it, and don't really understand it beyond a face reading in terms of grammar and vocabulary. But Srila Prabhupada is going on beyond just a literal grammatical translation to give the meaning of things. And I can try and think of what's a good example of that. Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll find a lot where, like, there's a place where, let's see. This is Srila Prabhupada's translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 9, Text 40. Prahlad Maharaj prays, "My dear Lord, O infallible one, my position is like that of a person who has many wives, all trying to attract him in their own way. For example, the tongue is attracted to palatable dishes, the genitals to sex with an attractive woman, and the sense of touch to contact with soft things. The belly, although filled, still wants to eat more, and the ear, not attempting to hear about you, is generally attracted to cinema songs. The sense of smell is attracted to yet another side. Restless eyes are attracted to scenes of sense gratification, and the active senses are attracted elsewhere. In this way, I am certainly embarrassed." So the chances are that Prahlad Maharaj wasn't surrounded by cinemas and Bollywood music. But Prabhupada's giving the purport that the ears are attracted to some rubbish. In fact, if you look at the Sanskrit, Jivai Kata Achuta Karshati Ma Abhitripta. The ears, the tongue is unsatisfied and it's attracted to one side. Shishnon yatas twag udaram shravanam kutaschit. On another side, the genitals, and also the skin and the belly, shravanam, and the ears, kutaschit, to some other stuff. Grano anyatas chapaladrik kva shakarma shaktir. And the nose, on another side, and the restless eyes, kvacha, someplace, karma shakti, and the active senses, bhavya, many, sapatnya, co-wives, Eva, like Gehapatim, a householder, Brunanti, annihilate. But if you've got a strict literal translation would say, ears are attracted to one side, the nose is attracted to another side, the tongue yet another side. And Prabhupada, but you don't get the depth that you get when Prabhupada explains that the sense of touch wants to touch some soft things, the tongue wants palatable dishes, the ears are attracted to cinema songs. So Prabhupada is fleshing it out. He's unpacking the meaning of the words. That's how Prabhupada's doing. Not always. Sometimes he just does a straight literal translation. But he wants to make sure that we get it, that we get the meaning. And so he, even Gopi Pradhanana Prabhu gave an example from Brihad Bhagavatamrita of how he translates following Srila Prabhupada. There's something about, let's see, maybe I can find it here too. Oh, check branches. Okay, there's a place in a verse he translates where he talks about Brigu's jump. And you could translate it literally, Brigu's jump. But what does it mean? Nobody would know what it meant if you just said Brigu's jump. But what it means is suicide. Apparently in some situation, Brigu was thinking about suicide and he was going to jump. Some such story. So Brigu's jump means suicide. But if you just literally translate Brigu's jump, everybody said Brigu's jump. So you have to know the meaning. And then when you give the meaning, suicide, the word suicide is not in the verse. But Brigu's jump means suicide. So there are many, many places in Prabhupada's translations where he's giving the purport, where he's giving the meaning, he's unpacking the words of the scripture so that we'll get the idea. And therefore, by reading Prabhupada's books, people become devotees. And by reading the faithful, grammatically correct translations of the scholars, people don't get anything. They don't get the spiritual meaning, including the translator himself. There's one translator after Prabhupada. This translator, his big work was Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Harvard University Press published his Chaitanya Charitamrita. But we're familiar with the person. We know that he was quite fond of alcohol. He was not a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Krishna. He's a scholar. And therefore, he really couldn't get it. When there's a place, the Patan soldiers, the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were traveling with him in the forest, or traveling on pilgrimage, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes into ecstasy and falls unconscious. And so they're all surrounding the Lord. And just at that moment, these Patan soldiers, Muslim soldiers, because of the Muslim government, they come upon the scene and they figure out this sadhu must have been robbed by these guys, they're bandits, and they've given him some kind of poison to knock him out. They've given him knockout drops, and they've stolen his property. And they're going to arrest these associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But the devotees chant Hare Krishna, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes out of his trance. And the soldiers say, "Sir, these rogues must have given you knockout drops, but now you're sick." No. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, no, sometimes I get attacks of epilepsy, and so I must have fallen unconscious, and these men are my associates, and so on. So the scholar, he takes it that here's evidence that Chaitanya was an epileptic. He doesn't get it, He can't pick up on the story that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving. No. I'm not going to say to the scholars, listen, to the soldiers, listen, I went into a trance of love of God, okay? But sometimes I'm attacked by epilepsy, everything's all right. And the scholar takes it literally, that Chaitanya must have been an epileptic. Therefore, a Vaishnava will call Girnam Bhutam Harikatamata. Shravana Naiva Kartavya. Sarvos Trishlayatapa. So Sanatana Goswami advises, never hear Krishna Katha except from the devotees. Don't hear from the non-devotees. It's like milk touched by the lips of the serpent.
Thank you. And also when you hear about football and airplanes, is that like in Srimad Bhagavatam, in some translations, I think in 10th canto, 11th chapter, there's sometimes there was like football and airplanes.
In 10th canto?
10th canto, 11th chapter, I think.
Boys are playing. It says in the translation football. It's when they play with, what is it, Amalek group?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm not sure, is that Prabhupada's section or after in Prabhupada's section? Yeah, so football, Prabhupada's giving the idea. Airplanes, there were airplanes. Vimanas are not a modern invention. Airplanes, we can take credit. The Wright brothers were the first to fly. No way. Brahma was doing it long before, and not on a little contraption. And had superior airplanes. Garda Muni created one out of his mind. Now they've got this Dreamliner. It's just coming out. With a second deck, and a physical fitness room, and whatever else it's got. But Garda Muni's airplane had forests, mountains, lakes. No jet lag. So airplanes were known. Yes.
Maharaj, I had one conversation once about editing. And the devotees were saying that sometimes people who make criticisms about editing, often they're not really aware they're not really aware what the actual function of an editor is.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I was thinking, I'm presuming that Prabhupada, he was aware what the function of an editor was, and therefore he was quite happy that they take things and reword them, and that's just normal.
Yeah, it's not that Prabhupada wanted editing galore. You just take the book and use it as raw material and go to town with it. Not at all. He didn't like unnecessary editing. He didn't want the books edited to death. But he didn't like mistakes. He didn't like mistakes. And he criticized the editors. One time there was, he looked at some Krishna book pages that were in preparation. Let's see if I can find this.